The League's Cup group phase is over. The USL Super League sprint season starts tomorrow. And what is USL League 1? That and much more on today's edition of Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show that dots the map of the ever-changing American soccer landscape. Hope you are doing well. Thank you for tuning in. My name, Robert Kerr, local soccer guy, and filling in for Jason, the radio soccer guy. We got Brian Biedenbach from Fort Wayne Footy. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Rob. I'm glad to be here. Excited to be part of the show today. A lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Yeah, busy time in American soccer and world soccer as always. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of asking the big question, like what is USL League 1, we got a calendar flip impacting the calendar this weekend, and we'll take a look at the League's Cup, how it works, and who is advancing. But I got to shout out the MK Ultras first, our beloved channel members helping us make this thing happen each and every week, doing it live 3 times a week. So the special jersey first in the door, a hick in time. Well done. First in the door here this morning. Good morning to Armando, Mr. Bob. Everybody be like Mr. Bob, gifting 10 Morning Kick Around gift memberships. So that is a trial. If you gobble up those memberships, that's for 1 month. So it's on you guys to re-up after a month. But thank you, Mr. Bob, for your generosity. As always, we got Kate in the house as well. We got Jeff. We got Luis Blanco. And in hick in time, not only is he first in the door, but he's also reaching in his pocket and spreading the love of Morning Kick Around out to fellow viewers. So gobble those up as well. We got Jax in the house. Good morning to you too, sir. And then Mr. Bob with a good point, 9.7K subscribers. Help us get to that 10K. If you're watching this and are unsubscribed, hit that button. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. We want to get to that 10K before our Kickathon 2 in September. Tim, good morning to you in the Northeast. Tulsa Mario, good morning to you, sir. I saw in the Morning Kick Around Discord server there was a meetup of MK Ultras out at a game last week, and you guys look good. You and Soccer Zombie, great picture of you guys out there. Always great to see the Ultras meeting up, soccer in the wild. We got George checking in as well. We got Jason checking in as well, and Shrimper Steve from over in the UK. He's getting very excited. Plenty of South End Shrimper updates in the Discord. Good morning to you, Bill and CD Gobjects. Good to see you again, sir. And then we got Dwayne as well. And then Mario. Oh, my goodness. We've surpassed. We usually go for 10 to 20 donations per show, and we've hit that right out of the gate. So thank you, everybody. And then one more. We got Chris in the house. So thank you, everybody, for chipping in and supporting Morning Kick Around as we try our very darnest to cover the ever-changing American soccer landscape. Brian, you are an Indiana native, are you not, right?
That's where I live now. I'm an Ohio native, but I've been here a long time in Indiana. Yes, sir.
So I got a question for you, sir. The Michigan and Ohio relationship is very well documented. What's the Indiana-Ohio relationship like?
Yeah, not talked about much. Honestly, like you think the college football rivalry is the big one for Ohio and Michigan. Indiana's never really been a football powerhouse until recently, so it's kind of been an afterthought, honestly. So, yeah, not a whole lot there, to be honest. I'm hoping with the soccer stuff, with Indy 11 continuing to grow and maybe Indy getting an MLS team could build some rivalry with some, FC Cincinnati and Columbus Crew and all that, but not really much there, to be quite honest.
I hate to admit it, but up in Michigan, I've kind of blurred Indiana, Ohio, both the southern bordering states. I kind of like grouped them together, but I didn't want to assume too much, see if there was any like northern Midwest beefs there. But yeah, it's probably very college football entwined. And until like last 2 years, Indiana wasn't really, barging their way into that scene.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it all stems back to the OSU Michigan rivalry there, and those fan bases are so big and so crazy that it just bleeds into everything else, I believe.
And through this show, we're kind of talking about dotting the map, right? Soccer's growing, and then we're looking for soccer in all the different corners of the United States. And we realize the parallels and like where sport is kind of entrenched in community is obviously American football a lot, and then college football especially. And so be interesting to see with the rise of soccer, will those tensions and those kind of community rivalries form from our sport that we'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I hope so. That would be so much fun, as USL continues to grow, and the potential of MLS even moving to more of a regional 5-team regional conferences with their realignment in a couple of years, and then USL, becoming more of a, as it continues to grow, USL League 1 maybe becoming more of a regional thing. I think there's going to be more teams popping up, and hopefully some really heated rivalries. Those are fun. And I hope to see that in our sport for sure.
Yeah, when there's more skin in the game, it's a lot more fun. And I'm also hoping that through the USL League's Cup, that Fort Wayne and Detroit maybe becomes a thing with some time. That would be exciting. But
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about that.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that later in the show. At the top of the hour, we're going to do the big question. What is USL League 1? Mm-hmm. And from someone who's been covering it and producing content on it for the last year and a half, almost exclusively, and you're fully entrenched in this, we're going to ask the big question. What is USL League 1? We're going to talk about the calendar flip. The USL Super League has their sprint season start this weekend, and then we're going to touch on the League's Cup, the format, who advanced, and whatnot. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, got to say thank you to everyone who's donated. Idaho Footy, that's a new screen name, so welcome aboard, and thank you for donating and bringing others into the fold here on Morning Kickaround. Become an MK Ultra, just a few bucks a month, gets you priority commenting on screen during these live programs. You get bonus content from us here at Morning Kickaround, and you get access to the Morning Kickaround Discord server, which is really becoming well populated. Lots of thorough and really wide-ranging discourse from people talking about their local teams, people talking USL and how that's evolving, and then MLS discourse. Lots of discussion, lots of fun interactions regarding the World Cup and the national teams, as well as a lot of folks have created or are in the process of creating their own local clubs. So lots of good stuff happening in the Discord server, worth the price of membership in its own right. But you don't have to spend money if you don't have that in your means. You can hit the thumbs up button. You can share or become a subscriber absolutely free of cost, and it helps us a whole great deal. So you ready to do the show, Brian?
I'm ready, Rob. And I hope there's a lot of Fort Wayne folks in the chat right now. I hope a lot of Fort Wayne folks are subscribing, hoping they're joining the MK Ultras and getting you guys up to the 10K sub mark.
Yeah, we definitely want to hit that 10K before Kickaround 2 kicks off in September. But let's get into the show. Friday, August 14th. Here we go on Morning Kickaround. All right, starting off the show here on Morning Kickaround, myself, Robert Kerr, alongside Brian from Fort Wayne Footy. We're going to start the show talking about the League's Cup. It's a bit of a controversial and a new competition, but we will talk about what just happened. The group phase of the 2026 edition happened, and there's been some format tweaks, but kind of tell us what happened and who's advanced from this, Brian.
Yeah, so the League's Cup there were 18 teams from each division. So Liga MX and MLS, 18 teams from each, pitted against each other. No MLS teams played other MLS teams. They all played Liga MX teams and vice versa. It was crazy format with 36 teams in it and only 8 advancing. Like there's no in between rounds. It goes straight to the quarterfinals. And so a lot of, I don't want to say controversy in that, but a lot of points that were up for play that, a team like Cincinnati that was in, and then in the last 10 minutes, they were not in because they dropped some points there, right? And so that happens, but there's no opportunity in between these 36 teams down to 8 teams. So crazy format. You have 4 teams advancing from Major League Soccer in Chicago, Real Salt Lake, Columbus Crew, and Austin. And then from Liga MX, you have Leon, Club America, Toluca, and Monterrey. And so what I find interesting about this is that the weirdest competition, we talk all the time in our circles about the luck that goes into, a postseason tournament or a tournament like this. Like, you can grind all season long, finish in the Supporter Shield, number 1, top of the table, and you get in and you have a bad game first round of postseason playoffs and you're out, even though you've been the best team all season. Leagues Cup is a lot like that, I think. So if you look at the teams that have advanced, you've got 3 of the top 5 Liga MX teams in Club America, Toluca, and Monterrey, and Leon sits at 14 on their table. But on the MLS side, you've got Chicago and RSL, who are 8th and 9th on the table, the full league table, and Columbus and Austin, who are 24th and 25th. So it's just a weird, the best MLS teams didn't advance, but the best Liga MX teams did. And so a lot of luck plays into this. Good games, bad games. It's an interesting format, Rob, this year. I'd love to know your thoughts on this and maybe get some from the comments, because I know some people love it and some people think it's a money grab and it's just a tournament that we don't need to be playing.
Yeah, I think it's a money grab. It is a take, because it's hard to see it as anything but that. And it's controversial in the fact that it was generated and it took away schedule time and even teams away from the U.S. Open Cup, which is, one of the few kind of embedded historical tournaments that the United States have that kind of unites teams from all across the country and all across all the different levels of the pyramid. And that's been talked to death, but without all those things, clouding our judgment of the tournament, it is kind of jarring to go from so many teams and so many games, and then boom, here we are with only 8 teams, just a handful of games to go. It's exciting. It's interesting that they had tweaked the tournament this year. There was a couple games in Mexico, whereas there was none before. And then they tweaked to where there's no MLS teams playing each other, which was basically this is pointless. Why are we playing each other in some game that's not league game? We played these guys 2 weeks ago. So I can see they're trying to funnel and make those interleague games happen, which is the point of all this, right?
Sure.
But it seems like it's generated in an odd way to have the 4 go through no matter what from each side.
Yeah, for sure. It's fun. I will say that it's a fun tournament for a number of reasons, right? You get to see some cross-pollination of styles of play. You get to see, U.S. soccer fans get to see Liga MX teams play. And I think the style of play is just so different. It's challenging to, I think, players playing against different styles. You get used to, MLS clubs and you kind of know how they do it. And then you get, Pachuca coming in or Leon coming in, and you're playing a different style, different speed, different pace potentially, and different players. And so they have to adjust. So I think it's fun watching it.
Well, yeah, they produced a good spectacle because it is exciting. And that's why the CONCACAF Champions League exists in my mind, because we get to work up to these, MLS is almost like their measuring pole is always how they do against the Mexican teams. And then the continental competition provides those opportunities, but we're going straight to the entertainment factor. And sure. And I've been to Columbus versus Cruz Azul, which is one of the coolest atmospheres I've been at a domestic league game, or not league, but a domestic matchup here in the United States. Columbus versus Cruz Azul, which was great. Some of the atmospheres, both domestically and down in Mexico, looked really, really good. So the entertainment factor is obviously there, but it's value or depth to it is still questionable. That aside, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's a less serious tournament because of the money factor, right? But also this is the third time I believe they've changed formats. Like you just keep playing with the tournament to pit different teams against each other in different ways, and then you cut it from 36 to 8. That was not the case last year, and 2 years before that they had changed the format again or previously, and so it's just to me it's a less serious tournament. But I understand why teams want to jump into this over US Open Cup, right? The prize money factor is a huge one. I think there's $1 million in US Open Cup spread across the top three, and then like 40 million in Leagues Cup that's spread.
Well, yeah, it's a controllable quantity for Liga MX and MLS. They created it themselves, so it's like, yes, 100% of monies comes to us, whereas US Open Cup is, it's not under their control. And
Right.
so, yeah, those motives, are plain and obvious, but there's FIFA mandates to compete in all competitions and all that. That's amongst the rules that's kind of looked past here in the United States. That's not enforced. But to the people we go here, a few folks having some things to say in the chat about Leagues Cup, and one of our founding ultras, kind of agreeing with my sentiment to a degree. He went to Union versus Cruz Azul. It was included in his ticket package. Fun, but also meaningless as well. And then another comment here from Ronald. Welcome in. A new name to be funny. The moment some lost the Open Cup is the moment they created the Leagues Cup. And then George, similar sentiment. Leagues. Only problem with the Leagues Cup is all automatic places to the Champions Cup, which is for those new to this. So I'll bring Thomas in once again. The Liga MX versus MLS possibilities, like he says here, already existed with the continental competition. Yeah. So kind of how do you wrestle with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think on that point, you get into the CONCACAF Champions Cup and Major League Soccer is still in their preseason. So you get games that, the teams that here in the United States, typically we watch, if you're MLS fans, are not really in form. It's preseason for them getting ready, where Liga MX is pretty much mid-form. And this format in Leagues Cup is just the opposite. Liga MX is just starting their season. They're just getting into it. MLS is mid-form. This is a weird one because we've had a gap for the World Cup, but we're seeing a lot more, I think, MLS teams winning games over Liga MX teams in this competition than we do in the CONCACAF Champions Cup competition because it's flipped. The calendar's flipped there.
Yeah, and I mean they're generating it, like you said. They've had a lot of format changes, and so there's no like an established pattern to it, or no one's ingrained this into the kind of their rhythm of the season or anything quite yet, because it hasn't settled in. Before we pick out our picks for the quarterfinal game that we're excited about, do you think that this is the best version of the format so far of the Leagues Cup?
I don't think so. I think it's a big jump to go from 36 to 8 teams. I think every game, I like it in the sense that every game matters. Every single point matters. And there was a potential going into the third game of each round for each team, that there was a potential that teams that won every game with 9 points weren't going through because there were just so many games and so many teams. It didn't pan out that way. But we have teams that, 9, 8, 7, 6 points in the top 4. So I don't love that about it. What I do appreciate about it is the lack of congestion in the rest of the schedule. If they're going to cut from 36 teams down to 4, go straight, or 8, go straight to the quarterfinals, you're not going to get as many games mid-season in a stretch for Major League Soccer, where guys have potential for injury, guys have potential for just getting worn down, taking rest. You get into games like quarterfinals or so later on in Leagues Cup. And do you play your top guys and go for it? Which I think you have to. But then you're getting late in the MLS season, and you need your top guys for those games, getting late in the season, trying to vie for playoff spots potentially. So the fewer amount of games for each team, I think, is probably a good move. But if we're going to have a serious tournament, I don't think this is the format for it. That's the argument, right? Is this a serious tournament or not?
So you would recommend for, was it third or fourth year, and then a third or fourth format for this competition? And then to answer the question for Mike Tom Willis, why the Leagues Cup games always in MLS stadiums? And so like kind of the cynical answer to that is that this competition is based on getting Liga MX fans based in the United States to buy tickets at higher prices in Major League Soccer. And this is actually the first year where there's any games in this competition happen in Mexico, which is another slight to the legitimacy of the product or the competition, is because it's not even at all. So the MLS teams, the select, I think it was only like 4 teams that had to go to Mexico in the group stage compared to not. Like they have a legitimate claim to say that, they didn't play on the same even playing field as some of the teams that could stay at home and have the Mexican teams travel to them. But with time as it is, do you have a pick for a game to watch in the quarterfinal round?
I do. I am looking forward to the Columbus Monterrey game. I think, or I'm sorry, the Chicago Monterey game. Sorry, I had that one wrong. I think Chicago's been looking very good. They're sitting on all 9 points in this competition. I think with some of their recent pickups, I'd like to see how that plays out against Monterey. Monterey's a tough team. They're always a tough team, and so looking forward to that one to see which direction that one goes.
Yeah, Monterey, always a fun watch whenever I'm able to catch them. So good pick there. The matchup that jumped out to me was Columbus Crew having to go travel and play Club America in Mexico City. Columbus has had success against them in this competition a few years back. Like I said earlier in the show, I loved watching Columbus versus Cruz Azul a couple of years ago. And so Columbus, an exciting team in Major League Soccer right now, kind of retooling and coming up, like basically overhauling their team kind of like on the fly here. They got a new coach, got new players, inbound, outbound. So they're exciting, and they're, playing arguably the biggest team in the region. So that's kind of what I'm looking for there. Thank you guys for your input on this. This is a collaborative program here on Morning Kicker. So thank you for throwing in your 2 cents. But let's move right along to another league doing a calendar flip. Stick with us here on Morning Kick Around. So there's been a lot of news about Major League Soccer flipping their calendar to mirror the European calendar. But the women's side of USL, the Women's Super League, the Gainsbridge Super League, is doing the opposite. Next year, they will turn to a summer calendar after starting the league off in the European format. So the USL Super League, are conducting or participating. They've created a fall sprint season, which starts this weekend. To remind you guys, Lexington SC won this in May. But what do you think of the Super League flipping opposite of Major League Soccer, and then they having to do kind of a sprint league season of their own?
I think as far as the flip for them, I think it's probably a good move, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But the sprint seasons, I think, are going to be very, very interesting for both MLS next year and for USL, the Gainbridge Super League, just to see almost like not quite a Leagues Cup format for sure, but it's every game matters. You got in this one, each team's going to play 14 games in the sprint season, 7 home, 7 away. And it'll be very interesting to see how, I go back to the MLS's back tournament when there was just a handful of games and everything mattered just to get people back in the rhythm. So it'll be fun, I think, going into this. But as far as flipping the schedule, I gotta think this is probably a good move for the fact that it's not competing now with MLS as they've changed their schedule. That summer is going to be wide open for soccer fans. What are we going to watch? What are we going to look at? USL, as far as we know, there's no talk of them flipping leagues, USL Championship, or flipping schedules, USL Championship and USL League 1. When Premier comes in, who knows? We'll get there when we cross that bridge, right? But I think that this will be good because it will give some more attention, focused attention on the women's game here in the United States in the summer. So the summer window. So the spring to fall, I think, is probably a good move for them, Rob.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I'm glad there's going to be more in the summer because, in all honesty, my MLS intake is typically in the summer when there's not a lot else going on. That's usually when I dig in years past. And Armando in the chat saying it's a good move for the Super League. They weren't drawing very well in the winter months, which ultimately I'm sure is what the teams want. And then curious, also with curious if they can shift the calendar, a lot of like the transfers and whatnot. I'm curious if that helps or hurts them. I'm guessing part of why they launched this league in the winter months was to maybe like coincide and get more transfers. Apparently that upside wasn't enough to outweigh the bad winter months.
Yeah. On their own website, the Gamebridge Super League website, it says the women's soccer landscape in the United States continues to evolve. A spring to fall calendar better supports player movement. So in that sense, it better aligns with player movement, roster development, and long-term growth across the game. And so I do think it probably will play into that, is my hunch, that player movement, picking up the right players at the right times across domestic leagues here in the United States will be good for them.
Yeah, someone in the chat, remind me, is NWSL staying pat, or are they doing the flip? There's so many leagues like reapproaching their format. I've kind of lost track of that. Is NWSL flipping? Because I was going to say it would help them to stay in line with the NWSL if they want players to be able to go up and down between leagues as well. Bill getting in the chat saying the Super League miscalculated how many foreign transfers would happen. Yeah, that's my point. And also adding that they're going to stay in the summer. So in a sense, maybe they kind of make the European players kind of like adjust to the American way rather than flip flopping. NWSL and the Super League in England are kind of at a tit for tat to trying to lure all the biggest players. And so that's kind of a conflict there between summer and winter calendars. But the sprint season for the Super League kicks off this weekend, and the schedule goes as such. And this kind of might be a way to familiarize with these teams if you're not already. We got DC Power FC taking on the Carolina Ascent, who were a finalist in the previous league season. Then the champions, Lexington SC, playing Brooklyn FC. Fort Lauderdale United taking on Sporting Jacks. And in Dallas, Trinity FC is the primetime game at 8:30, taking on the Tampa Bay Sun. So interesting to see how this all plays out. Obviously, hopefully this is in their best interest. Try to keep as many of these dots for these clubs on the map as possible. So I'm guessing that there was some trouble, so they saw the need to take this dramatic leap, and we want more spots for more players as possible. So hopefully this flip is advantageous. Do you have a last word on this topic, Brian?
No, I just think it's fun to see some of the schedule realignment in American soccer, whether it's Major League Soccer or Gamebridge Super League here. And we'll see how that, again, pans out as USL continues to grow. I think it's a challenge for American soccer fans that have gotten into a routine and they know their schedule. And this is when we go to games, like you said, summer's wide open for MLS games now, but then those will switch. But I think it's showing growth in the game here in the United States with the alignment of the world game and our schedules and their schedules. And so as many challenges as there are with all of this, I think it's a good move for soccer in the United States.
All right, guys, we're going to move right along in just a second, but I want to take a moment to say thank you to our MK Ultras, our channel members, getting in on the conversation during our live shows. We've had a wealth of generosity through the show already. I think there's been 30 gift memberships donated already through the show. So thank you so much for helping spread and bring more people in the morning kick around tent, guys. I couldn't thank you enough. And if some of those are still available, gobble those up. And if you go to the posts part of the YouTube channel, there is the link to get in the Discord. One of the major benefits of becoming a channel member is getting into the Morning Kick Around Discord channel. And there you can add your dot to the map. When Jason comes back next Friday, we'll do our weekly dot the map where new MK Ultras give us their location and the teams they support, and we put you on our very own Morning Kick Around Google map, and we like to take in where all of our members are and get everybody involved. So gobble up those gift memberships and get yourself in the Morning Kick Around Discord server. If you're unable to do so and you want to support the show, you can do a thumbs up on the video. Those help, of course. Share the video and tell your friends about Morning Kick Around. But we are halfway through Friday's show. So let's take a breath as we ramp up for today's big question here on Morning Kick Around. Welcome on in. Big question here on Morning Kick Around, and want to take advantage of Brian being here. He spends a whole lot of time and creates a lot of content in the USL League 1 space. So Brian, I ask you today's big question. What is USL League 1?
Rob, that is a great question, and one that I am continuing to learn as this season goes. USL League 1 essentially kicked off in 2019. It's the third tier of American professional soccer. Soon, maybe to be fourth tier with USL Premier. I know you guys have talked a lot about that as we have gone, but maybe still third tier, depending on where Premier ends up in relation to MLS. But currently USL League 1, third tier professional soccer here in the United States. It is a league that they started with 10 teams in 2019, and we are now 7 years in 2026, and there are 17 teams this year. There were supposed to be 21 at the beginning of the season, and you guys have covered that very well early on with teams that have come and gone and dropped out right before season started, with teams like South Georgia Tormenta and Fort Lauderdale United that maybe are coming back next year. We'll see how that all plays out. But it's been a fun league, man. It's from my perspective, just watching as a Major League Soccer fan, seeing these big clubs, big professional teams in big cities down to third tier, and I'm like, how is this going to go, right? But it feels so much more grassroots in the American soccer landscape. USL League 1 does, because every team has a local flair, local feel to it. They're all built very differently, which maybe we can get into a little bit here as we go. But USL League 1 has been a fun one for me to learn and follow this season, and the variety of teams, supporter groups, fan bases, media, and all that has been really fun.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I do get really excited with these teams in USL League 1. We've talked to many of the founders of these teams, or people playing a big role in getting a lot of these up off the ground and running. Yeah, like you said, a big variety of teams, but there's so many big question marks about sustainability and viability of having a national footprint of a lower league. Because like you said, it is at its heart, some of the teams might be somewhat corporate minded, but at the heart of lower league sports, it's got to be grassroots. So there's kind of a little bit of a juxtaposition there. And then as it is, you feel like it's kind of, in my opinion, we're going to dig into what you think, but kind of seems like this is just like very early days of what it could become in the future. Because when USL brought out their plans for promotion and relegation, this is going to be like kind of almost the incubator part of this USL League system, right? And you got to think that and it's been turbulent. There were supposed to be over 20 teams, and there's 17 teams, and that's already growth, but it's a little bit scattershot. I don't know if scattershot's the right word, but you hope that these teams are able to make it through, because you feel like if the more teams like these spread, you could actually have that regional solid base that American soccer has never really had.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, Rob. I think the pyramid, the USL pyramid with USL League One being the base, it currently is not a stable base. And if you're going to build a solid program, a solid promotion relegation system, you have to have a solid foundation to build it on. And right now, USL League One has been historically, again, only 7 years in, pretty turbulent with teams that have come and gone. And you have teams that are operating on a bit more of a shoestring budget, trying to hold things together. And you have teams that are a little bit more corporate minded and professional minded with their eyes on the next league, the USL Championship, or even maybe move into USL Premier as that comes into play. Like, so you have just such a variety of teams and ownership groups and expectations in this league that I think as it continues to grow, we may see some shift and some movement towards maybe a little bit more, not that it's not a professional league, but a little bit more professionalism in as far as ownership groups and ideas of where the teams can go, right? So right now with USL League One, you're pretty well locked into USL League One, so you build for this league. When promotion relegation enters the fray and enters the conversation, it'll be interesting to see which teams say we're content here and we're going to play in USL League One, and which teams are going to push to move up and push to get at the top of the table and move up. Not that anybody's going to write it off, but I think some teams will go about it very differently than other teams, at least in what I see this year. What are your thoughts on that when promotion relegation comes in? Does it shift what USL League One currently is?
Oh, yes. I mean, when promotion relegation comes in, it'll definitely change how this USL League One looks, because in theory, there could be almost limitless USL League One teams. And if this is to work right, there should be dozens and dozens of these teams all playing in a localized format, and to where like Midwest team plays each other, West Coast, East Coast. Like, I don't think that there should be, except for maybe like playoffs sort of thing, I don't think teams should be traveling across the country, which they are doing now. There's teams, for example, guys, there's team in Boise, Idaho, which is way up there in the northwest of the country. And their very first match as a club, they went to Sarasota, Florida, which is way down there in the southeast of the country, complete opposite corners. And I don't think any other country has a third division matchup with that sort of gap. I mean, if you want to like mirror things that happen in other countries, a third division team is at the very most going for a couple hours, right? They're not hopping on a plane that lasts plane trip that lasts a whole day. So that's the sort of thing. So USL League One, if promotion relegation goes well, should look nothing like how it does right now. Like, this should be a huge league with a whole bunch of, conferences or divisions from there. For context, as it is, this league, like you said, was created and launched in 2019. There's been at least 6 teams shutter or self-relegate themselves to the amateur leagues, and there's been some MLS reserve teams come and go, and a couple defections to MLS Next Pro. But before we kind of dig into kind of the varieties of the ownership groups, just like at a purely base level, someone's like flips on a USL League One game and they're like, what am I watching? I kind of where are these players sourced from, and kind of like, what is the path to players getting to this level?
Yeah, a lot of these guys have been here in this league for a while. Some are coming from down from USL Championship teams that have been around a while. So, some of these rosters are built from, experienced veteran players that are maybe not ready to make that step to championship, or they've maybe lost a step in championship and come back down to USL League One, provide leadership, and they're good players in this league. Fort Wayne specifically has built their roster very differently than anyone else in this league, because it's a lot of unproven college players coming up from, many of them played USL League 2 last year, but they've reached out to I think there's more international players coming into USL League 1 now. So Fort Wayne has a number of guys that played in like Coventry Academy and Arsenal Academy that weren't getting that look to move up into the professional ranks. So this was an opportunity for them to dip their toes in the water of professional soccer, get a feel for it. So I do think you're going to see, at least right now, we're seeing a variety of ways that teams are building their rosters. When it becomes more of a local league or local conferences, I think you're probably, I'm guessing here, going to see a lot more local talent pumped into these teams, because now you've got a professional team within 30 minutes, 60 minutes of you. I think it's, for us in Fort Wayne, we've got young talent seeing professional soccer in our city for the first time, or at least for the first time in a long time on a large field, right? And it's creating a vision. It's creating, a dream for a young player that I don't have to go to the Premier League to play. I don't have to go to the Bundesliga to play, or even MLS. I've got professional soccer right here, and this is what it could look like. So I do think we'll see that shift. How long that's going to take, I don't know. But right now, a lot of veteran teams and a few very young teams right now. So roster builds are kind of all over the place.
Yeah, kind of in the undiscovered country sort of a thing of talent procurement. We heard from Boise saying that they were going on scouting trips abroad and doing all sorts of things and finding players through a broader scouting net, while the coach out there kind of brought some players in from other stops in his coaching journey. I got to say, the head coach for Fort Wayne, wow, I love hearing from him and the way he coaches. I can see how he's gotten a tune out of those young players in Fort Wayne. And actually, with the way that Fort Wayne has kind of done well at home with those young players, and to your point, if this has become localized leagues, they're going to have to utilize local talent to a degree, for how soccer works and talent building works. Even teams at the highest level need a mix of players in their backyard and bigger names. But if this is going to be a third or fourth tier pro league, you're going to have to resource get players in from your own areas. But with the young players, I mean, you could look at that and be like, oh man, are these guys even pros? But with them kind of like finding their feet here, and they've gone on a bit of a run in their home games, would you say that gap between like the college and maybe the elite amateur level and the League One level is a little blurry there, like the step up to League One level?
I think so. And I think part of that is because there's so many international players playing Division I college soccer here in the United States, and even NAIA, a lot of rosters that are fully international players and not American players. And so I do think that line is getting blurred. I think you're seeing a lot of USL clubs that are USL2 teams that are playing at really high levels because of the talent they've assembled from Division I, Division II, and NAIA soccer teams. And so as they move up into USL League One, they already have a lot of that experience, I believe. And so I do think it's blurring a little bit there. But I think what we're seeing in Fort Wayne, not to like bring it hyper local, but I think for the sake of an example, an illustration, right? We have young players that struggled early on, and because they're playing veterans who have been around, that played 6-7 more years than them. And so the soccer IQ, the style of play is a little bit more advanced, a little bit more experienced. And Fort Wayne found their feet, and they went on this 11-match unbeaten streak. Now, 6 draws in that and 5 wins. But it's a team that, again, was unproven. Nobody really knew what to expect from these guys. And they came out, found their feet, and they went on this run. We're seeing this midseason stretch, which I'm really paying attention to, and got a chance to talk to Coach Avery from Fort Wayne about it, that there's been a struggle, several games lost in a row against some top teams in the league that maybe we fared better against the first time we played them. So I think you're seeing first-time professionals. You talked about the travel. Like, these guys have never traveled this far. They've never done this cross-country trip twice in 2 weeks, to play these games. So legs are getting tired, legs are getting heavy. The mentality of this long season, like, you can play a college season in the fall and you can train the rest of the year, but playing nothing competitive the rest of the year is different than playing a competitive season March to October, potentially even into November. So we're seeing some adversity right now with this Fort Wayne squad, and because I think it's a young squad, and we'll see how they bounce back on the other side of it.
Through your work on Fort Wayne Footy, you've talked to creators from surrounding other teams, and you've done plenty of interviews. Kind of what teams we talked about, kind of like player sourcing, how there's been a variety. But as far as like team approach and outlook, kind of what kind of things have stood out to you in that regard?
Yeah, what I've learned is the teams that have been around for a little more than Fort Wayne has been seem to have much more of a grassroots upswell of, there was an ownership group that came together, made an announcement, and all of a sudden there was a supporter group that came together, and there was a partnership there, and it was community engagement, community support to get around this club before they played their first match. Even a year and a half before many of these teams played their first match, there was already a growing supporter group. And I love that, right? It's a community that has taken ownership of a team that has yet to come into existence.
That's cool, yeah.
And I love that. So I remember talking to Sean Fecteau from up there in Portland, Maine, about their team, the Portland Hearts of Pine, and how they had a lot of town hall meetings where the owners would go and they'd have these town hall meetings and they talk about team name and the crest and their colors and all this stuff, right? And I love that. And so a lot of the teams that have been around I've heard stories of those things happening. I think there's I don't want to say a trend, because this may be the first year it's happened and it may not happen again. But there seems to be more of a focus on, I talked about professionalism maybe a little bit ago, in how Boise and how Fort Wayne have built their teams this year. And I may be way off base here. Maybe other teams have done this, but Boise went out and they got Nate Miller, an experienced coach, with experienced players. You said they sent out scouts everywhere abroad to look at experienced players. We want to build a team that is ready to win now. We built a stadium. We built this fan base, and it's coming along as they go. 7,200 fans, sellouts almost every game. Like, it's incredible what's happening in Boise. But they built a product on the field that was proven. They just had to put the pieces together. Where Fort Wayne built their roster very differently, as we've already talked about, but they built their front office with a lot of professionals that have been in the sports marketing and sports business for a number of years here locally with the Comets and Tin Caps and other teams. And so they built a front office that's ready to win, right? And so I don't know how other teams previously have built that, but it seems to be more of maybe a top down, like, we want to build something here, and we're going to engage fans, and the fan base is growing. We've got a new stadium. We're ready to go. So it seems to be a little bit different in how these two clubs have been built than the stories I've heard from around the league.
So we talked about the variety, and I think that must be the kind of the theme of this. What is USL League? One that keeps coming to mind. So we talked about the player sourcing and kind of like the corporate versus grassroots approaches across the league, but there's also the stadium, the venue variety. Fort Wayne building a brand new shiny stadium, Boise kind of like making an existing venue very much into their own right and very unique stadium. They're building one in Corpus Christi, and then we just heard a couple weeks ago about plans for a new one for Portland Hearts of Pine. So we want to make this an evergreen segment, but as we're frozen in time here, Fort Wayne has kind of took the lead for brand new stadia, but there's some more to come.
Yeah. I love it. I'm also cautious, right? And I've heard you and Jason talk about the teams. Many of the teams that have folded in this league are teams that got really ambitious, built stadiums, and then they couldn't sustain, and they're out. And so you have teams like Fort Wayne and Boise in their first year building stadiums. But again, I think their plans are not, let's stay in USL League 1. I think they have their eyes set on, we're moving forward. You don't build a 9,000 seat stadium, I don't think, for third tier American soccer. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll grow to be that. But I think you've got your eyes set on something more in the future. I don't know that, but the conversations I've had lead me to believe that. And so maybe we'll see more of this, right? As USL League 1 grows, I don't know that you get a lot of teams building stadiums like this that plan to stay in USL League 1. There's not a lot of cities maybe that have space for stadiums or funding for stadiums. So this may not be, an ongoing thing other than teams that like are already looking like we're going somewhere else. We're not staying here long.
Yeah, I mean, a stadium and a venue is a kind of a statement of intent that you're going to be here in the future. If you're renting somewhere or if you're just a tenant, that, you could just get an email and the team's gone tomorrow. We didn't renew our lease at so-and-so field and we're gone tomorrow. You build a stadium or you get into some sort of public private relationship and there's like, times and commitments there, planting your flag. And to your point, like building a stadium, you think that is a marker for a hunger for more, that we want to build beyond that. But at the same time, maybe the entities creating or providing that funding just kind of want to lay that marker down to show their intent for the future. And maybe just locally, maybe Fort Wayne. So promotion relegation, hypothetical, maybe that doesn't happen.
Right.
Does Fort Wayne have the support locally as it is in the third division of American soccer to fill that up week in, week out for years and years, just in the league as it is right now?
I believe Fort Wayne does. It's a strong soccer market, even though it's a small soccer market. There are just a handful of youth clubs, but they're all competing at the national level, which has been so fun to watch. Boys and girls clubs at the local youth level competing at nationals this year. Multiple teams from each club. And so you're seeing strong soccer at early ages, which means families are getting behind this. Families are already, like it or not. I know the conversation around, pay to play and club soccer and youth sports right now is crazy. And it's a really hot topic, but parents are willing to invest in the game. And so I think as they continue to invest, I think that's only going to grow here in Fort Wayne. And so to be fair, in this conversation, at least locally in Fort Wayne, building this 9,000 seat stadium, maybe it's big. It'll take us a few years to get there. I think we'll fill it. But they did start at a local high school. They moved to a local NAIA college, and there really wasn't another stadium they could move to fill. We were getting full at these other stadiums, so it was either build something new or either drop out or find a new place to play. And I think Fort Wayne made the right move. And let's build a stadium where we have room to grow. And we're not filling the stadium yet in Fort Wayne, but we have, for many games, 3 times more than we had average fans last year in there. So it's a lot of growth in 1 year for sure.
Yeah, that's a huge step up. And just very ambitious. You love to see that ambition and that funds going towards a club in this game, because, up until the last couple of years, the sort of investment and filling up the base of a soccer pyramid as it is wasn't even really considered. And so part of Fort Wayne building the stadium is super exciting. I love that there was that big jump up, and then just having a stadium of your own means at the very least you control your own destiny, so to speak. And then one thing to add on to this, what is USL League 1 conversation, and something that I thought as far as created competitions was the USL League Cup. It was called the Jägermeister Cup. This year it's the Prinks Tires Cup. But that has actually afforded quite a few teams to maybe generate. So this is a competition where it's not involved in league, but you play USL League 1 teams and USL Championship teams play against each other, which actually has opened the door to more local rivalry possibilities.
Absolutely. Back to the top of the show when I was going to ask you about this DCFC rivalry potential coming down to Fort Wayne. Yeah, it's been fun having these USL Championship clubs in the Ruoff Mortgage Stadium, we call it here in Fort Wayne. We did a show, Fort Wayne Footy did a show with some podcasters from Indianapolis before the Indy 11 match. And we talked about, how does this become a real rivalry? Like, it's first game, big brother, little brother, whatever. And we saw a game that was tied up in the 91st minute, went to penalties, and you see a USL championship team winning it. And you're like, okay, now this is a real rivalry. There's really heated emotions now, even though we won't see each other than the USL Cup potentially for years. But I do love this inter-league competition. You see rivalries like that across the country. That was just the one we had locally here. But I do think you get an opportunity to build some of these regional rivalries that you don't get to see in USL League One when your closest team is 8 hours away from you, right? And so now you've got USL championship teams within an hour and a half, within 2 hours that you may see year to year in this competition. So I love it for that reason.
Yeah, the conversation that comes to mind is when we interviewed the folks at AV Alta, which is a USL League One team in rural California. And this competition and the Open Cup provided them way more local competition options than the league itself, which you hope something that works through, but they did provide them the opportunity to play a lot of California teams that are in the championship and otherwise. But Detroit City FC versus Fort Wayne FC becoming a rivalry in the future, that would be exciting. And I just have to take a step back and just kind of gauge where American soccer is right now. We went from 0 soccer-specific stadiums to within where I am in Michigan. Fort Wayne is there's almost built. There's going to be one in Grand Rapids here shortly, and Detroit City FC just started building theirs. So within like an hour and a half, 2 hours, there's going to be 3 brand new soccer-specific stadiums, which is just, let's appreciate where we're at here for the moment. But as far as coming back to the original question of what is USL League One, it's hopefully what the beginning seeds to a much larger thing in the future. It's facing difficulty. USL, the entity itself, is taking on a lot of big kind of unprecedented challenges. They are trying to build a base of a system as the system is operating. So it's kind of an interesting future ahead.
Yeah. I've heard people talk about it as like building a plane while you're in the air, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to piece it together as you're flying. I do think they have big plans. I was skeptical as an MLS fan. I was skeptical of USL Soccer coming into this, but what I've seen now gives me hope for the future of the league. And just again, the seeming trend towards building teams, building clubs in local areas that are sustainable. And so looking at how are you, what's your infrastructure before you play your first match, I think are good questions to be asked to grow this league and to grow the stadium, or to not to grow the stadium, but to grow this league, to grow this regional rivalries and to grow this league. I think it's a good move in the right direction.
So hopefully everyone out there that is new to this conversation and new to USL League One is now more educated on this. Thank you, Brian, for bringing your knowledge from Fort Wayne Footy and for your insights here on today's big question. Folks,
Rob, can I just say one last thing? Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off. Like, if you're looking for a fun league to watch, like, let's just get it to base level. Like, what is USL League One? It is a ton of fun to watch because each team has its local flair, has its local supporters group. It's different in every stadium you go to. It's different in every stadium you watch a game in. And so it's just straight up, it's good soccer, and it's a lot of fun soccer in a different way than the top leagues are in the States and elsewhere.
Yeah, kudos to that, and thanks for that addition. I've definitely enjoyed covering USL League One here on Morning Kickaround, and it's kind of those exciting small cities that they said soccer would never work, and there's some seeds sprouting to prove that to prove that otherwise. But to kind of just wrap up the show here on a Friday, we typically wrap the show with dotting the map but with Jason's absence, we will save that for next Friday. But I do want to remind you guys, there was many gift memberships handed out throughout the show, especially at the top of the show. So if you accepted one of those gift memberships, get in the Morning Kickaround Discord server. In addition to the Discord server access, when you're a member, you also get access to bonus content and priority commenting on screen. Saw a number of new screen names here today. So I saw those gift memberships have been taken on. So go to the posts thread here on the Morning Kick Around YouTube channel and get yourself into the Discord and find the map thread. Put your location and the teams you support in there, and we'll get you on our Morning Kick Around map. But thank you, everyone, for donating. Thank you for your additions to the conversations today. Check out Brian's stuff, Fort Wayne Footy. Great coverage. If you want to know more about Fort Wayne or just this level of the game, check them out. Tell the folks out there where to find you, Brian.
Yeah, we're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that at Fort Wayne Footy. You can find us there. We do a lot of, again, specific Fort Wayne FC coverage on our Monday night live show. We have a Sunday night live show that covers a lot of other local soccer. So if you're in the Fort Wayne area, you may find that interesting. If you're not, you may not. But it's been fun to cover, to see our coverage grow and fan base grow here in Fort Wayne. So you can find us on all those. I will make a plug too. We do a spinoff show called Crest and Colors, where I do interview media personnel, writers, and podcasters from other USL League 1 teams, which is where I've learned so much about these other teams and their stories. And so we do a little bit of a match preview, but that's really at the end. So if you're interested in learning about USL League 1 teams, that's a great opportunity to hear about what's happening in Portland and AV Alta out there in Antelope Valley and all over the league. So check that out if you're interested in League 1.
All right, check that stuff out. Thank you so much for hopping on, Brian. Love having you on board. One of our MK Ultras, one of our dedicated Ultras, Bill, he says, see you tomorrow. He's going to be heading out to the Fort Wayne game, and that's one of the great things about the Morning Kick Around Discord server is MK Ultras meeting up in the wild. The thread's called Soccer in the Wild. There's folks meeting up across the country, and hopefully we got to talk about this more, Brian, but myself, and I'm trying to get Jason out here as well. We got to figure out how to get the whole crew together. There's a weekend, there's a match at Fort Wayne in late October that I really specifically want to get to. If I just have to drive my car and get myself there, I will, but I'd like to make it an Ultra Fest, a meeting of the MK Ultras there in October. So I really hope to get out there and meet you in person and really experience Fort Wayne together.
Yeah, come on down. We have good relationships with the club too and folks at the stadium. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity even to do something, a live show or something together in a place that we can gather folks and maybe even see the stadium. We'll see.
That sounds like an awesome time. And stay tuned, folks, as we'll try to keep you updated if we make that like an official outing or whatnot. American Groundhopper, I think it's the 24th. I'm really bad at remembering dates, but I think it's October 24th. The last Fort Wayne home game in October, I believe, is what I'm going to do. And yes, I will most likely be dragging MK Ultra Luke Zagorski along with me. But let's wrap it up here on a Friday. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for supporting. We will be back with Jason next week, starting on Monday, doing it live once again. So until then, stay brave, be safe, and of course, enjoy your soccer.